So thank you so much, Carolyn, for coming on and being a part of, the puzzle that we're all trying to put together and really amplify voices to make a difference. Even if it's just a pebble drop into the lake, it makes a huge ripple effect. So again, on behalf of Setsi, we thank you so much for coming on and participating. And as always, we begin all things by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So please, if you can, do us the honor of introducing yourself and to our listeners and viewers, and tell us about your remarkable work.
Thanks, Matt. Like I said, I'm not sure how remarkable my work is, but I'll try. My name's Carolyn Whitzman. I'm now on my sort of third incarnation as a housing policy consultant. Before that, I worked for local government, the City of Toronto, for a while, and then I was a professor of urban planning in Australia. Since 2019, I've been doing a lot of work, but I think the best known work is in relation to the Housing Assessment Resource Tools Project, which is based at UBC. I personally am located on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people in the city colonially known as Ottawa, which is the capital of the country colonially known as Canada. But we've done work across Turtle Island, across Canada, that looks at three things. The first is housing need across Canada. And what we've done is taken census data and do what the CMHC, what the Canada Mortgage and Housing Company used to do, but doesn't do anymore, which is we break it down by income group and the capacity to pay housing costs like rent or mortgages. We break it down by household size, and then we break it down by priority populations. And those priority populations include women-led households, Indigenous-led households, Black-led households, etc. So what we do, and that data is available for every municipality, every region, every province, every territory, Canada as a whole. You can compare it. You can compare different years to 2021, the last census, is that we provide a basis to look at what housing need actually looks like across Canada. And then we have two other tools. One looks at the well-located government land and how it could be used for non-market housing, public housing, community housing, cooperative housing. And again, that's something that the federal government used to do a lot better than it does now, which is make land available. It's one of the biggest costs of housing, one of the biggest determinants of why housing is unaffordable. And then a third tool that we have looks at the possibility of acquiring privately owned land, affordable properties, and keeping them affordable in perpetuity through nonprofit ownership or non-market ownership. So, for example, just 2 days ago, Ottawa Community Housing bought 311 townhouses from a private company called Minto. And Minto and other large companies are well known these days during an era of housing scarcity, of increasing rents to the point that many low-income folks, including mostly racialized folks, are evicted. So we work on tools that can help enable the right to housing.
Beautiful, beautiful. That is so needed. Totally. And if you can articulate your personal mission and vision for us, please.
Well, that's a big question. I guess I've always been interested in the rights-based framework. In my first sort of incarnation working for local government, I was really interested in gender-based violence. And there's a huge link between violence and housing. Women and young people who are in violent situations in their family often can't afford to move out because there aren't affordable housing options. And also women and gender diverse people are quite often harassed by landlords in rental situations. So I guess my interest in housing goes back a really long way, about 30 years, because I'm 60 years old now, and gosh, 40 years. I've always been interested in everyone having a safe, secure home with dignity. It's possible in a rich country like Canada, and it's incumbent on us in terms of our international rights obligations. So I've always been interested in why we collectively make the choices that we do. And I guess my vision is to use evidence to help people advocate towards better decisions by government and other people in power.
Very nice. And can you oh, if I can say, like, what inspires you most about your current work?
Well, to be honest, one of the things that really inspires me about my current work is the fantastic people that I work with. Um, there's been sort of ebbs and flows in terms of um, the people that I've worked with, their commitment to collective vision, but also just, you know, the everyday pleasures of working with people. So I get a lot of my sustenance through working with like-minded people. I also am a little bit of a introvert, and I'm really happy sometimes just sitting at my desk like I am right now and thinking, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I have now in my life to be able to have the luxury of thinking and doing research. It is a luxury. I'm very aware of my privilege throughout my life that, you know, here I am sitting in a warm place, able to talk with you. And there are a lot of people in Canada right now who aren't sitting in warm, secure places and don't have the time and the support to do some deep thinking about how to make the world a better place.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that. I'm also an introvert too, and you know, it definitely puts things into perspective when you know that you have that inner gratitude of what you have and the ones that don't have, you know. So again, this work is why it's so important to just to kind of sit back and say, okay, these are the you know, the rich Canada as we know it to be, have the opportunity and have the ability to house the ones that are not housed, you know. So again, this is powerful work
And
that you're doing.
especially during and after COVID, Marat, you know, I'm able to work at home. I have the space, I have the internet connection, etc. And also to not have to worry about where my home is, and not to be overcrowded or other conditions that really had a disproportionate impact on Indigenous, Black people of color households during COVID. I mean, infectious illness does increase the risk of it if you have to go out to an unsafe work situation, or if you have to share your home with a bunch of people, and if you're sick, you don't have your own bedroom to shelter in when you're sick. So, like, I've been doing a lot of time over the last few years reflecting on the importance of home. It's a place where you can get together with your loved ones, but it's also a place that you can seek shelter in a very real way.
So true, so true. And what challenges and barriers do you face in your current work, and how are you, or if you have your team, working to overcome them?
Well, I think the answers are out there. I think the evidence is out there as to what works, and there's just a lot of political unwillingness to look at that evidence. So, you know, we have information about 3 million households, a lot of them single people, who need homes at less than $1,000 a month. So we need to kind of work backwards. How can we make homes that are affordable at $1,000 a month? There's virtually nothing available for rent, and of course, no home ownership opportunities right now that are at $1,000 a month. It's even less if you're on welfare, and welfare hasn't gone up in relation to inflation for over 30 years across Canada, particularly in Ontario where I live, but across Canada. So to me, a lot of my everyday frustrations and barriers come from a stubborn unwillingness of those in power to actually deal with facts. And one of those facts is that we need a lot more low-cost housing, and we need to keep it. We need tenants, for instance, to have the same rights as homeowners in terms of not being evicted. 1 in 10 people in BC were evicted between the 2016 census and the 2021 census. That's a lot of people. You know, I think at this point we know what's right. And quite often, you know, like 70% of Canadians think that we need to do more to end homelessness. But for whatever reason, that political will isn't there. And so I'm a researcher, but I get frustrated from an advocacy position because people won't listen. People in power won't listen to what the evidence says. I mean, the evidence says it's so much cheaper to provide housing for people than it is to tear down encampments or police your way out of, well, you can't police your way out of homelessness, or, you know, rely on emergency rooms or prisons to take care of people who don't have secure shelter. It's just an incredibly wasteful as well as immoral way to treat people.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's astonishing that, you know, you're saying with the welfare system, you know, social services system, they hasn't increased in the past 30 years. I mean, that is just mind blowing. Knowing
Yeah,
the
we're
rate of
literally paying less in welfare in Ontario than we were in 1995, like literally.
Wow. I mean, hearing that the cost of food went up 4%, I think the beginning of this year,
Yeah.
when it was already on high. So, I mean, my goodness.
Rents and home prices have doubled in the last 7 years, while incomes have gone up less than 25%. So housing costs have increased 8 times the ability of people to pay. And the thing is that, you know, if you're someone like me who's 60 years old and a homeowner, we're sitting on a lot of wealth that's increasing, but my income is taxed, but my wealth is not taxed in the same way. So renters are getting poorer, homeowners are getting wealthier, but no one wants to talk about wealth taxes, particularly for people who have over $10 million in wealth. You could get enough money from a wealth tax on people who are have $10 million in wealth or more to cover the costs of ending homelessness. So it's just huge and increasing inequalities that don't fit in with Canadians' image of ourselves as a equal society.
So true. And do you have a set of key priorities in your work right now?
Well, like everyone else, my key priority is to keep on working as long as I can. So I guess one of my key priorities is that I do a lot of, you know, writing grants and stuff like that, because the work that we do, and, you know, I'm egotistical enough to think that HART is doing essential work. We get funding for like a year and a half or something like that. And then, you know, a year and a half passes really quickly, and then we have to get new funding. So my priorities are actually keeping the work going. But in terms of the actual vision, I want to do more work with, well, we do a lot of work with the federal government, so I want to do more work with them around uh, just counting better. Like we don't at the moment count homelessness very well. We don't count people in uh, congregate collective dwellings. I was talking to someone from the National Long-Term Care Association yesterday, and I recently worked on a report on including people in group homes, people in long-term care, and she said that's the first thing I've seen at all associated with the federal government that counts up people who are in long-term care. So until we start counting students. We don't count students nationally in their housing needs. So until we start counting people, they just aren't going to count in policy, you know? And it really kind of disgusts me that there's people in really bad conditions in long-term care. Everybody knows it. And the federal government won't take leadership on it because it sees it as a provincial issue, but provinces get transfer payments for health and welfare from the federal government. So you need to link, you know, performance standards with that kind of money. So I guess my priorities are just, you know, getting this information out. I do a lot of media work. I do a lot of, you know, translating my research and getting out good solutions. So next week there's a couple of folks from Finland who have Finland's greatly reduced homelessness to talk about the really common sense stuff they've done that works. And the housing minister is going to be on a panel with them, along with the representative of the new Indigenous Housing Association called Nietzsche. And, you know, that's a big part of my work because you can do research um, and you know people can know it really sucks, but unless you're able to get out there pretty tirelessly and get the message to key decision makers who aren't like evil people or anything like that, you know, that you know we're going to keep on saying, wow, homelessness sure is getting worse, wow, everyday conditions for low income people are definitely getting worse, wow, the rich are really getting a lot richer, but we're not going to be able to do anything about it.
Yeah. Getting that word out, amplifying. That's what this is all about for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you feel about the future of social finance or social enterprise in Canada? How do you feel about that in general?
Well, I think more and more people, including investors, are getting interested in how their money can help make people's lives better instead of worse. A lot of the worst landlords out there are supported by retirement savings from teachers and nurses and other unionized jobs. So we're in this kind of ironic situation where public servants and teachers and nurses unions are actively contributing towards dehousing um, current and former nurses and teachers and public servants. So I think we really need to re-examine where our investments are going to, and to again set some standards, some rights-based standards on um, where we can get sort of patient returns on building the kind of housing and other infrastructure that Canadians need.
Beautiful. And um, what is the ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you and your colleagues?
Well, success would look like there being no more homelessness in Canada, and it is, as far as I'm concerned, a realistic goal. It would look like everyone having a safe, adequate, affordable home. Um, it would look like, you know, linking in the housing crisis with the climate crisis because people are forced to move very far distances and rely on one or two cars in order to find an affordable place to live. And I mean, the other thing, which is sort of the secret sauce, and folks like Jay Pitter have talked about it, is it's not just housing, it's communities where people care for one another and get out in the streets and celebrate. And I guess I have a vision that, yeah, that everyone can be as fortunate as I am, where I've got great neighbors, great house, and a great community, and everyone deserves that.
Absolutely. That would be a beautiful world, right?
Yeah.
Sure. And do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action at this time?
Well, I think the next election, the next federal election, is going to be won and or lost, however you look at it, on housing. So I really urge that people get informed and get active. There's a lot of organizations, whether it's like uh, Acorn if you're a tenant, or there's groups that are working on more abundant housing, or groups such as yours. So if people commit to getting in touch with their local politicians about how important housing is and how important doing something about housing is, that would be really great, rather than kind of sitting back and seeing what happens.
Absolutely. That's perfectly said. Taking action and not sitting down. It's this to me at this time and this day and age, it's not really about just sitting down. It's really about the action part now, because I think there's a doorway that's open now where people are actually waking up and realizing that there's a lot of bamboozling going on, if I may say.
Yeah.
So that awareness is that light switch of awareness is coming on in the brain, and they're like, hey, hold on a minute. Let's reevaluate what's been going on generally within our environment, within our country, as a whole. So it's to me, it's promising. I can say I can hang on to that thread of hope, right?
I hope so, Matt. I really do. I like to think that there's going to be some informed,
Mhm.
active people. And thank you for
Yes.
your part in amplifying those voices.
Oh, our pleasure, man. Our pleasure. People like you, and you said you don't think. Listen, from listening to everything that you said, for sure you're making an impact. Come on, you are definitely making an impact. We appreciate people like you. We need people like you. You are the frontliners. You're the ones that are out there amplifying. The things that are going on. You know what I mean? So we appreciate you to the utmost, and we thank you again on behalf of Setsi for coming on and really enlightening the world in Canada. So when this gets on our YouTube channel, people will definitely be taking it and seeing what they can do also to add another add another notch to the belt for sure.
That'd be
So
great. Definitely
mhm.
send me a link when it's up on YouTube, and I'll
Oh,
try to
definitely.
um, uh, amplify it in my socials.
Definitely appreciate that. So, as always, as we begin, we're going to end as well by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts of the shoulders whom we stand on as we build, share, learn together in collective liberation and sovereignty. So, once again, I really appreciate you, Carolyn, and you know, we will fight the good fight for sure.
Thank you. And that's a beautiful start and end.
Yes, definitely. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye, dear.